الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Continue with الروض المربع, and we still in شروط الصلاة, the conditions of the Salah, and we stopped at ومن رأى عليه نجاسة بعد صلاته وجهل. This is in page 224, the middle of the page. This is where we stopped. ومن رأى عليه نجاسة, this is still in the condition of اجتناب or إزالة النجاسة, to remove the najasa or to avoid the najasa as a condition for the salah. So continuing with the same subject, he says وَمَنْ رَأَى عَلَيْهِ نَجَاسَةً بَعْدَ صَلَاتِهِ. Now these coming masail with this mas'ala is about the shak or the doubt whether when a person has doubt whether the najasa, the impurity, was in salah or before or after the salah. So وَمَنْ رَأَى عَلَيْهِ نَجَاسَةً بَعْدَ صَلَاتِهِ, whoever sees on him najasa after the salah. And as we said, عليه before, as it's established, either al-badan wal-thawb wal-buqa, the body, the clothing, and the spot that a person makes sujood or stand on. So من رأى عليه نجاسة بعد صلاته, after his salah, he saw it after the salah, because during the salah he will remove it. And if he's not able to remove it, then he has to leave the salah to clean the najasa and then to start the salah over. But here he saw the najasa after the salah. وَجَهِلَ كَوْنَهَا فِيهَا, as the Zad says. And he jahila, he is unaware, he's ignorant, he doesn't know, he doesn't have the knowledge whether it's the najasa was in it. He says وَجَهِلَ كَوْنَهَا أي najasa, the najasa فيها أي في الصلاة. He doesn't know if the najasa was present while he was making salah, because he saw it after the salah is finished. And this can easily happen. A person after he finished the salah, not immediately. If it's immediately after he finished the salah, of course it's very obvious that he had the najasa during the salah. But he left the masjid and he went to his went home, for example, and then when he got into his home, he finds something that looks like najasa. So now he doesn't know if he had it in the salah or this is something that happened after the salah. So this is here وَجَهِلَ كَوْنَهَا أي نجاسة فيها أي في الصلاة. What's the حكم here? لم يعدها. لم يعد, that's the Z, and then in the road لم يعدها, he is not to repeat the salah. لاحتمال حدوثها بعدها, because there's ihtimal, there's possibility that the najasa happened after the salah. فلا تبطل بالشك. So it's not to be then al-butlan is when something is void or something is not valid. So the salah does not become invalid by a shak or the doubt. And this is a very important principle in matters of fiqh and matters of deen. We have asl, we have a foundation here that the shak does not remove the yaqeen. The shak does not remove the certainty. So it's this person will be in doubt. So no action to be built as a result of this shak, because the shak here, the doubt, whether he had it in the salah or after the salah. He says, وَإِنْ عَلِمَ أَنَّهَا, if he knew that the najasa, أي النجاسة, كانت فيها, was in the salah, while in salah he had najasa, أي في الصلاة, لكن جهلها, but he جهلها, he didn't know about it, he didn't know, أو نسيها, or he forgot. He knew that he has on his clothing najasa, but then when the salah started, he forgot that he had najasa and he didn't clean it. Then أعاد. The ruling here is that he has to repeat the salah. So he knew that the najasa is there, but then he in the salah he didn't know or he forgot it. He says كما لو صلى محدثا ناسيا. The same way that if he prayed محدثا, that means he does not have wudu, nasiyan, forgetfully. And this is the madhab, as we hear, another riwayah of Imam Ahmad, that there is difference between these two cases, which is what some of the ulama are upon, and also the contemporary ones. And it's another riwayah, another narration from Imam Ahmad, which is if the najasa was forgotten or a person didn't know, and knowing that it's in the salah, the salah is valid. And the evidence of that is the hadith of Jibreel when the Prophet ﷺ was in the salah and he removed his shoes, and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum did the same thing. So the Prophet ﷺ at the end, he asked them, why did you remove your shoes? They said, we saw you removed it, so we removed it. So he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, Atani Jibreel. Jibreel alayhi salam came to me in the salah and he said that there's najasa in his shoes. And he did not repeat the salah from the beginning, alayhi salatu wasalam. So for that other riwayah, this is an evidence that if a person in the salah, he had najasa and he didn't know, then the salah is valid. This is if he finished the salah, or if it's during the salah, then he removes it and he continues the salah. So this is the other riwayah. But if he made the salah forgetting that he had wudu and he finished the salah, then he has to repeat. This is consensus. There's no differences here. Why? Because a person has to have wudu. But the najasa, it's something that, it's because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And there is back and forth. Actually, these masail, especially in these conditions of the salah, there are so many differences of opinions within the madhab itself also and others. And it's a good practice to see how the differences of opinions is not necessarily something that a person would recognize how the ai they had valid points, and that's why it's a valid differences of opinions. But while studying, we take whatever is there, or at least what for example, the mashayikh they give, even the contemporary ones, and we stick to that when it comes to actions. But then we build our knowledge based on understanding these masail. So because someone would say, but how the other side they said about the hadith of Jibreel? The other side they said this was a very short period of time. And this is part of the ma'fu anhu. But then the other side, they said, but the Prophet ﷺ, he did that after he came up from the ruku'. That means it was while standing and then the ruku'. So this is a long time. So something like this. But again, the amal, the actions based on what the ulama are upon. And this is the other riwayah, that only if a person prays while he forgot that he made wudu, then he has to repeat the salah. If it's najasa and he forgot about it, he doesn't have to repeat, but the madhab here is to repeat the salah. Clear the mas'ala, what the mas'ala is? طيب. وَمَنْ جُبِرَ عَظْمُهُ. The Zad says, وَمَنْ جُبِرَ عَظْمُهُ بِنَجِسٍ لَمْ يَجِبْ قَلْعُهُ مَعَ الضَّرَرِ. Whoever his bones, jubir. Al-jabr is to fix something broken. So someone, his bone is broken, and jubir, that means it's fixed. بعظم النجس, with an impure عظم, with impure bones. أو خيط جرحه بخيط النجس, or his jurh, his wound is خيطة, that means stitches. The stitches with stitches that are najis. Najis stitches, the material is najis. وصحة, صحة here means that he's cured. So they put bones that is najis, like a bone of a maita, for example, animal that died. And now he's cured. So the bone is covered, and it's gonna mention whether it's covered or not. Or they had wound and they made stitches, and the stitches was from something najis, and he's cured and back to normal. لم يجب قلعه مع الضرر. It is not obligatory for him قلعه, to uproot it, to remove it, مع الضرر, when it's harmful. So he's not going to be told to break your bone because you have an impure bone inside. لم يجب قلعه مع الضرر, because this is harmful. بفوات نفس. What's the ضرر? فوات نفس. النفس is the soul, or one's being. فوات, الفوت is when something is missed. So فوات نفس, that means someone would die, or maybe this can cause for him to die. أو عضو, or a part of his body will be lost. أو مرض, or even sickness. So if it's already cured, that's it. Then there's no need for it to be removed. ولا يتيمم له إن غطاه اللحم. And he should not make tayammum for this part if the skin covered it. And we talked about the tayammum, which is from the mufradat al-madhab. This is only in the madhab of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And this is If it's not covered with the skin, then in that case to make tayammum for it, to make the normal wudu, if this is one of the parts of the wudu, and then to make tayammum for it because it's something that is najis. But if it's covered, then there's no tayammum. And why? Because if anything that is covered in the body, meaning does not have any hukm to it, does not have any rulings to it. Like if someone has in his stomach, ate something najis, something impure in his stomach, and it's time for the salah. Salah is valid. He's not carrying the najasa because the najasa is hidden. And now he has a bone or a piece of bone that is impure and it's hidden, doesn't have any hukm to it. So this is ولا يتيمم له إن غطاه اللحم وإن لم يخف ضررا لزمه قلعه. And if he doesn't fear harm, then he should remove it. If there's no harm whatsoever, no sickness, nothing whatsoever, something insignificant, stitches that if it's removed, it doesn't make a difference, things like this. But with the condition that there's no harm whatsoever. Clear? وما سقط منه, what fell from the human beings, أي من آدمي من عضو أو سن. عضو is organ, part of the body. أو سن or tooth. فهو طاهر. Then it's pure. So someone, his hand get cut off or a tooth fell from a human being, doesn't matter whether it's a believer or disbeliever, that part that is amputated or the tooth is pure, طاهر. أعاده أو لم يعده, whether he bring it back, attached it back, or he didn't. أعاده, repeat, putting it back. أو لم يعده, and الإعادة is to repeat something. So here whether he brings it back or not. لأن ما أبين من حي كميتته. لأن ما أبين قطع, separated. Anything that is amputated from حي, from someone that is alive, then it's like it's maita. And this is the rule here. Very easy to remember. If you want to know that something get cut off from a creature, whether it's najis or not, he says here ما أبين من حي كميتته. This is the ruling of anything that cuts off from anything. If it's from a human being, the human being when he dies, is he pure or he is impure? The human being, if he dies, is he tahir or najis? Tahir. So that means if he's alive and something get cut off from him, then it's tahir. So the ruling of it is the ruling of that human being or that creature if he dies. So for example, if it's a goat and it died without slaughtering it. So that means what? It's maita. So for example, if a leg of a goat get cut off during its life, it's alive and someone cut its leg off. Is this is tahir or najis? Najis. Why? Because the goat, if it's maita, it's najis. Not maita that it died, maita meaning that it's not permissible for us to eat. Not that's why he says it's going to be the mudakkah. It's not slaughtered. So the word maita here, always when it's mentioned in the fiqh, that means the haram, the one that is haram to eat, because it was not slaughtered. So لأن ما أبين من حي كميتته. Some people think that if a hand is cut off from a human being, it's najis. It's to be buried and everything, but it's not najis, it's tahir, it's pure. And anything from animals, even though the animal is halal for us to eat if it's slaughtered, but if it's get choked or they shot the animal, it's haram, it becomes najis. So that's why when it's alive, anything that get cut off from it is impure, is najis. لأن ما أبين من حي كميتته وميتة الآدمي طاهر. And the maita of the human being is tahir. If the human being dies, then his body is tahir, is pure. وإن جعل موضع سنه سن شاة مذكاة فصلاته معه صحيحة ثبتت أو لم تثبت. Based on this, if he puts وإن جعل, if he makes موضع, the place of his teeth, سنه, سن شاة, the teeth of a شاة, goat or sheep, مذكى, that's the condition. مذكى, that means it's slaughtered. فصلاته معه صحيحة. Someone puts a goat's tooth on, yeah, if he does this, right, this is pure, but with the condition that the shah has been slaughtered. If it's alive, if he takes the tooth of a shah that is alive and put it in his mouth, that's najis. Even though there's another also narration that a sin is different than the body. The tooth and the hair is not to be treated the same thing, same way as the different parts of the body. That means it's tahir. But here he mentioned here that the sin takes the same ruling. فصلاته معه صحيحة. His salah is valid. ثبتت أو لم تثبت. ثبتت أو لم تثبت, whether it's stayed in its place or not. And then he says ووصل المرأة شعرها بشعر حرام. So now then goes to the ruling of having a wig or a hair of someone else. ووصل المرأة شعرها بشعر حرام. A woman making وصل. It's called وصل الشعر. الوصل is to attach another hair of another woman by another شعر, by another hair, haram. This is not permissible for women to do that. If it's شعر by شعر. ولا بأس بوصله بقرامل وهي الأعقصة وتركها أفضل. ولا بأس, that means it's no problem, it's valid, it's okay. بوصله, وصل الشعر, الشعر again is to attach something to the hair, whether there is hair or there's no hair, whether to attach to something already there, or the woman does not have any hair whatsoever, so they put something or another hair on her. If it's hair, it's haram. But if it's qaramil, al-qaramil here is made from cloth or wool or something like this, so it's not hair. So someone has dafair, braids from a cloth that is attached to the hair, then this is it's not haram. وهي الأعقصة, and al-aqisa is when the hair is, the braids is obvious, but al-aqisa or al-aqsa is when you roll the hair to make a, what do you call it in English? When you just put your hair in not in a braid, bun, like when you make the hair in a bun or something like this. So, or make a tie, you tie it or something like that. Different than the braids. Braids is difficult to undo. وَتَرْكُهَا أَفْضَلُ. So if it's done with other than hair, it's okay. And it's better to leave it to avoid, deceiving others or whatever. ولا تصح الصلاة إن كان الشعر نجسا. If a woman, if someone wearing a wig from real hair, the salah is valid, but a person is committing a sin. Unless the hair is najis. Unless the hair is impure, then the salah is not valid because he has impurity. So a person might be making salah and he's committing haram, but the salah is valid, versus that the salah is not valid because if the hair is najis, if the hair is from something that is impure. Is it clear? طيب, then ولا تصح الصلاة في مقبرة, then there is going to be many things mentioned here, and maybe 11 things that the salah is not valid, and this is also from the mufradat of the madhab. The jumhur are upon that the salah is valid, but with karaha maybe. But here ولا تصح الصلاة. Salah is not valid بلا عذر, without an excuse. That means if there's an excuse, then it's valid. فرضا كانت أو نفلا, whether it's فرض صلاة or نفل, غير صلاة جنازة, except صلاة الجنازة. What is that? في مقبرة, in a graveyard. So in the graveyard, salah is not valid unless there's a udhr, and the udhr is going to be mentioned. Not any udhr, not any excuse. The excuse, as it's going to be mentioned, inshallah ta'ala, someone that is imprisoned in a graveyard. He cannot leave, and he has to make the salah. Then in that case, his salah is valid. So ولا تصح الصلاة بلا عذر فرضا, whether it's فرض or نفل. غير صلاة جنازة, only صلاة الجنازة is valid in the graveyard. في مقبرة, أين مقبرة? He says بتثليث الباء, بتثليث الباء. التثليث from ثلاثة, 3. And what's تثليث الباء? It's not, doesn't mean to put 3 dots on the باء, because the word تثليث, and this is the way, because when they would write things, they won't write the niqat, they won't put the dots in, the old style of writing. because when the person is reading it, he will figure it out because it's the words are repeated. But sometimes because the word might mean more than one thing if it's ta versus ba versus ta. So they would say مثلثة, right? So that means it's three dots. So it's that. But here it doesn't mean that the word مقبرة is بتثليث الباء, that the باء will have three dots. No, it's باء. But what is meant by that is that the باء can receive any حركة, the three حركات. So you can say linguistically مقبرة with a فتحة, or مقبرة, or مقبورة. That's the meaning of تثليث الباء. That the باء takes the three حركات. He says ولا يضر قبران. We're understanding the مسألة first, right? So قبران, to qabr, is not harmful. Why? Because the word مقبرة, this is what مقبرة means. That means they don't consider if people made a graveyard and they bury only one grave there, it's not considered to be مقبرة. If it's one or two, only if it's three and above, then now you can call it a مقبرة, you can call it a graveyard. So ولا يضر قبران ولا ما دفن بداره. He did not mention one because one is obvious. So if it's one grave, it's not a مقبرة, it's not a graveyard. If it's two graves, it's not a graveyard. ولا ما دفن بداره, and also if someone is buried in his house, then of course his house is not مقبرة. And Aisha radiallahu anha, when the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام was buried in his house, and next to him Abu Bakr, and then before and Umar, she would go to the other room, but she would pray in the other room. So this is according to what's known to the madhab. But the other riwayah also, that one qabr considered graveyard. And the forbiddance here is to pray where there's a grave, except Salatul Janazah. So any salah, whether it's there's one qabr or two qabr or three or more, the salah is not permissible, of course. And of course, this does not mean that the masajid that has qubur falls into the same category here. No, this is completely different. The masjid buried on a grave, this is haram, and it's haram to pray there. And brings also the subject as this and the other things that's going to be mentioned there. Is it forbidden because of a reason, or it's amrun ta'abbudi? The ulama discuss this, within even the madhab. As it's going to be mentioned, al-hush wal-hammam and so on. Is it because there might be najasa, or is just something ta'abbudi, meaning that this is the command of Allah and we don't know the reason for it or the wisdom behind it? Even if we know or we don't, it doesn't matter. It's haram, that means it's haram. So al-maqbara is amr ta'abbudi. It's forbidden to pray in the graveyard or by the graves or the masajid on the grave without having to see the illah. The illah, the wisdom behind it is very obvious, shirk. But the illah from a fiqh perspective, say for example, there might be najasa in the maqabr. What if someone says there's no najasa, we cleaned it under very strict rules, and it's the cleanest place on the face of earth? Is it permissible then to pray? No, because the illah is not mentioned. So here, this is with regards to the maqbara. And the other opinion, which is with the ulama upon, one grave also is the same ruling as three, which is another way also in the madhab. ولا في حش, the second thing that is the salah is not valid in, ولا في حش بضم الحاء وفتحها. حش and حش. What is it? وهو المرحاض, the bathroom, the place where people would go to the bathroom in. Now, this is different than the next one. So al-mirhad or al-hush is the actual place where people would urinate or defecate. Then of course the salah is not valid there. ولا في حمام, and not in hammam. Al-hammam is different than the hush. Al-hammam is the place for ghusl, for taking showers. And they used to, whether the public showers that they used to have before, or until now, people in certain parts of the world, or some people, they would have separate. The bathroom is one room, and the place of the shower is a different room. So here, ولا في حمام. The salah is not valid in hammam, and this is mentioned specifically in a hadith. And the hadith that is going to be mentioned later is a weak narration, But some of these matters has authentic narrations. Like al-Hammam is authentic. There's a hadith about the Hammam and the Maqbara. So أن أعطاني الإبل also. So ولا في حمام داخلي وخارجي. Whether it's inside the hammam, the room of the where the shower is taken itself, or outside of that room that is still part of the hammam. Because the public bathroom or the public showers, there are other rooms where people take their clothes off, and so it's the whole building, not just the place where the shower is. داخلي وخارجي وجميع ما يتبعه في البيع, and anything that follows or added or attached to it when they're selling. If they're selling the hammam, they don't just sell the showers, right? They sell the whole thing, where also the room where they change the clothes and so on. So that's why if people have places where they public showers or things like this, then the places where the shower, the salah is not valid, and the rooms where they change their clothes also is not valid because it's part of it. ولا في حمام داخله وخارجه وجميع ما يتبعه في البيع. Why the word البيع is mentioned here? Because it will clarify what considered to be the hammam. If someone wants to sell it, he's not going to sell also the place, only the place of the shower. He would sell the whole thing, which includes the room they change the clothes in, and things like that. So ولا في حمام. وأعطاني إبل. أعطان إبل. واحدها عطن. إبل are the camels. أعطان is plural, and one is عطن بفتح الطاء. What is العطن? What's the معاطن? وهي المعاطن جمع معطن بكسر الطاء. وهي ما تقيم فيها وتأوي إليها. This is the places where the camels they live in. وتأوي إليها, and they return to it. This is their place, their always designated place for the camels. Not the place that the camel would sit when it's traveling, for example. It's not about where the camel sits. Or even if it has droppings and things like this, it doesn't make it from A'tan al-Ibil. It's only the places that are known to be the houses of the camels. This is where I'm not sure they use the word barn for camels, I'm not sure. But it's the specific place where the camels, where they sit. That's why it says ما تقيم فيها وتأوي إليها. So if people are traveling with camels and they stop for overnight or something like this, and the camels, they go down and they have droppings and things like this is not A'tan. This is the places that are designated for it. And that also is not permissible. Salah is not valid. ولا في مغصوب, and also a place where it's stolen, land that is stolen. The salah is not valid. ومجزرة, مجزرة, slaughterhouse, in the slaughterhouse. Because this is whether is it illa with a reason, or because the hadith. If it's because the hadith, this narration is weak that is coming with the majzara, for example. But if it's for the najasa, and there might be najasat, of course, in these places, then to be avoided. ومزبلة, al-mazbala is the place where the trash and the garbage is thrown in. وقارعة طريق, and the pathway of people. The salah is not valid according to this. The other opinion, the other narration within the madhab also, that it's permissible, but it's the salah is valid, but whether it's makruh or not permissible. And the jumhur of the ulama that it's permissible and the salah is valid because of the hadith. But here we're going one by one here. So all of that, as we said, the ones that the hadith is authentic in it is the hammam and a'tan al-ibil and the maqbara. So here مخصوبة ومجزرة ومزبلة وقارعة طريق. And the Prophet ﷺ forbade people from praying in the pathway of the people. وقارعة طريق. Al-qari'ah is what the foots of the people, they hit the ground. So the exact path of the people. So sidewalks, for example, it's not permissible to pray on sidewalks. It's not permissible to for example, people in the plane, for example, they would, if someone prays between the seats, that's not permissible, because if someone wants to come and walk, this is the pathway of the people. So something that people would walk on, that's not permissible to pray there. ولا في أسطحتها, and also not in the أسطحتها, all of what's mentioned before. السطح is the upper floor, the roof of all of these things. أي أسطحة تلك المواضع. And the other opinion also that it's the أسطحة is valid because it's not, does not take, and this is an issue or مسألة whether the هواء, the air above something takes its ruling, the ruling of what's underneath or not. Right? So the masjid is one masjid, one floor. So the top of the masjid, does it take the same ruling of the masjid? Yes. Or if it doesn't have any roof, the air on top of the masjid, does it take the same ruling of the masjid? Can people fly up in the air right above the masjid and buy and sell, for example? Right? So it's masjid. So al-qarar is the floor takes the same ruling as the what's above it. Some things yes, and some things that the ulama they say it doesn't take the same rulings as the majzara or mazbala. If it's the roof and it's clean, then it doesn't take the ruling, the same حكم here. وسطح نهر, سطح نهر. The النهر is the river or a sea. The سطح of it is the surface of it. You know, how can someone praise on the surface, whether it's frozen? If a person prays on a frozen lake, according to this, salah is not valid. Or actually, what they mean by this is if someone has a wooden piece on top of the river, can he praise on it or not? That's different than the ship. The ship is valid, of course, to pray on a ship, but just a log or a thick log and someone is praying on there. According to this, is not valid. The other opinion that it's valid, and this is, for example, if you listen to the sharh of al-Rawda, and actually Sheikh Ibn Baz rahimahullah has a sharh مسموع. He would say that that's اختيارات الشيخ ما شاء الله, it's all of these things are permissible. And this is the other رواية in the madhab. وسطح نهر والمنع فيها ذكر تعبدي والمنع فيما ذكر تعبدي. المنع, all of these things, what's mentioned as the forbidden of making salah, it's ta'abbudi, not for a reason that we know, not because of the najasa or so that people would say, again, if it's clean, that means it's okay. No, it's ta'abbudi. That means this is text. There's a nas, and if there's a nas, so that means it's ta'abbudi, is to be followed. لما روى ابن ماجه والترمذي عن ابن عمر أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى أن يصلى في 7 مواطن. This is the evidence that the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام forbade from praying in 7 places. He says المزبلة والمجزرة والمقبرة وقارعة الطريق وفي الحمام وفي معاطن الإبل وفوق ظهر بيت الله. All of these ones we talked about it. المزبلة والمجزرة والمقبرة وقارعة الطريق وفي الحمام وفي معاطن الإبل. And here in this hadith وفوق ظهر بيت الله, on top of the house of Allah, top of the Kaaba. And this is also as one opinion. The other opinion that on top of the Kaaba the salah is valid. And this will be mentioned later also, inshallah. And the hadith is weak, but this is also a detailed subject. And that's why the opinion of these things not being permissible, not permissible, even though in the madhab they know the hadith is weak. But for those who took that opinion, it's not necessarily because of the authenticity of the hadith, because some of the rulings in fiqh can be, the evidence of it is the nusus al-amma, the general nusus. And they would take the weak hadith as a way to help to understand this meaning. And this is something that Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah even mentioned that in في شرح العمدة, that not every weak hadith, al-ahkam is not to be invalid because the hadith is weak, because there might be other nusus, other riwayat, other narrations that would give it more authenticity, or hadith that are more general, like for example, if there is najasa, the najasa is to be avoided. So whether the hadith is about the majzara is valid or not, if there's najasa, then it's to be avoided because of the najasa, things like this. But anyway, so as far as the practicality is, some of these things, the hadith of it is authentic, as the hammam and a'tan al-ibil, and also the maqbara. It says وتصح الصلاة إليها. Salah is valid إليها, to these places. إليها, not on it, but it's in front of you without any حائل, without any barrier. أي إلى تلك الأماكن مع الكراهة إن لم يكن حائل. The salah is valid to these places with karaha, with being disliked, if there was no barrier. So if a person is praying and in front of him is the hammam, it's basically like if you're at home and the door of the bathroom is open and you're praying right by the door. Your head is not in the bathroom. You're making sujood right outside of the bathroom door and the door is open. The salah is valid, but they say ma'al karah, with being makruh because you're close to what's impure, if the place is impure. وتصح صلاة الجنازة والجمعة والعيد ونحوها بطريق لضرورة وغصب. Now there's another exception here. صلاة الجنازة and صلاة الجمعة and صلاة العيد and the like of that requires big gatherings. It's valid if it's in the path of the people. So the masjid is full and the people are outside praying in the streets. Right? The salah is valid because this is Salatul Jum'ah. Where else they're going to pray? بطريق لضرورة, because this is a necessity. And the same thing for al-ghasb. The land that is stolen, it's not permissible to pray there unless it's Salatul Jumu'ah or Salatul Janaza or Salatul Eid. That the crowd is so much that they go to these lands, then it's permissible because of the necessity. Clear? وتصح الصلاة على راحلة بطريق وفي سفينة ويأتي. And the salah is valid, is permissible on a rahila, on a mount, whether it's in a path, and fi safina, and it's going to come, whether it's on a ship or on the means of transportation in the tariq, because it's not permissible to pray on the path of the people when they're walking. But if you are in a bus or in a car, the car is on the path of the people, but it's permissible to pray there, of course. So qira'at al-tariq is the actual floor, the ground where people are walking. But it's going to be mentioned as far as the safina. He says, وَلَا تَصِحُّ الْفَرِيضَةُ فِي الْكَعْبَةِ وَلَا فَوْقَهَا. Now, some of the rulings with regards to al-Kaaba. وَلَا تَصِحُّ الْفَرِيضَةُ فِي الْكَعْبَةِ وَلَا فَوْقَهَا. The salah inside of the Kaaba. According to the madhab here, that the nafl only is valid. The fard is not permissible to be prayed inside of the Kaaba. The other riwayah that it's valid fard and nafl. ولا فوقها, and also not above the Kaaba. On the other way that it's permissible. والحجر منها, the hijr is part of the Kaaba, which is the half a circle, that's part of the Kaaba. So those who pray inside, they are praying inside of the Kaaba, except the very end or the edge of it. Actually, it's not the entire hijr. A very small portion of it that it's outside of the Kaaba. So الحجر منها. وإن وقف على منتهاها. Now there's some details here, and as we said, one of the benefits of these details of the masail is not to make things difficult or to invent masail. Oftentimes is to understand the mas'ala very good, to understand what's the mas'ala is. So وإن وقف على منتهاها. Now praying inside of the Kaaba is valid, but here in the madhab only the nafl. And why is it only the nafl? Because the Prophet ﷺ prayed nafl. He did not pray fard. So the reason why they say it's not permissible to pray inside of the Kaaba is because of these things. He's not facing all of the Kaaba or something like this. So the Prophet ﷺ prayed. Well, that's nafl. So that takes it out of the asr that it's not permissible. But the other opinion is that the Prophet ﷺ prayed nafl. That means the nafl is like the fard. But anyways, وَإِنْ وَقَفَ عَلَى مُنْتَهَاهَا, if he stands by the end of the Kaaba. Now, this is all about praying inside of the Kaaba. So he's inside, but by the edge. حيث بحيث لم يبق وراءه شيء منها. He's standing and there's nothing of the Kaaba behind him. He's standing by the door. So he's standing by the gate of the Kaaba and it's open and he's back to the open part of the gate and he's facing the Kaaba and he's inside the Kaaba. This is how what that means. وإن وقف على منتهاها بحيث لم يبق وراءه شيء منها or because they're all going to take the same ruling. أو وقف خارجها, or he stood outside of the Kaaba وسجد فيها, and he made sujood inside of the Kaaba. So he was standing outside and his head when he made sujood is inside of the Kaaba. These two cases صحت. His salah is valid. Why? لأنه غير مستدبر لشيء منها. Because he's not giving his back to any part of the Kaaba. So we get to know from that why the ruling here that it's not permissible to pray the fard inside of the Kaaba, because the person would have to give his back to part of the Kaaba, which is when you're facing the Qibla, you're supposed to not to give your back to the Kaaba, to the Qibla. So when a person is inside, part of it that he's facing the Kaaba and the back is not facing the Kaaba. But again, the other opinion that it's valid for both the fard and the nafl, this is an exceptional situation. So now when these details are mentioned is because of the issue of al-istidbar. He's facing the Kaaba and he's not giving his back to the Kaaba. Now وتصح النافلة, the nafila is valid. والمنذورة فيها, المنذورة the salah that had nadhr. He made a vow that he would pray in the Kaaba. Then of course he has to fulfill his vow. وعليها, whether it's inside or above the Kaaba. If it's nafl, it's permissible. But here, باستقبال شاخص منها. So is it the nafl is to be prayed in the Kaaba according to the madhab without any condition? No, with a condition. باستقبال شاخص منها. You have to face shakhs. الشاخص, we took that in the adhan. Remember the stick where the muadhin would know the time? They call it shakhs. So a shakhs is something that comes up from the ground. So there has to be shakhs that he faces. Something from the ground up in the Kaaba that he would face. So for example, if he's praying to the door, he's inside the Kaaba and he's facing the door of the Kaaba and the door is open. Right? Then nafila, and he's praying nafila. So it's going to be valid or not valid. According to this, you have to have a shakhs. Now it has a ataba to it. It has like a doormat, has a higher, if you see the door of the Kaaba opened, is not flat, there's a little higher thing. So even if, according to this opinion, if someone is inside of the Kaaba and he's facing the door and it's open, according to this is going to be valid because there's a shakhs. So something is up from the ground. This is only if there is nothing from the ground that would be in front of the person when he's making the nafil. أي مع استقبال شاخص من الكعبة. فلو صلى إلى جهة الباب. So if he prays facing the bab, the door, أو على ظهرها, or he prayed on top of the Kaaba, ولا شاخص متصل بها, and there's no shakhs object that is attached to the Kaaba, لم تصح. The nafila is not valid. ذكره في المغني والشرح عن الأصحاب. ابن قدامة from the أصحاب وإمام أحمد لأنه غير مستقبل لشيء منها, because in this case he's not facing any of the Kaaba. وقال في التنقيح اختاره الأكثر. This is Imam Mardawi. وقال في المغني, as you see when he mentioned books and the أصحاب and things like this, that means that he's taken the opinion that is not the opinion of what is established in the madhab. وقال في المغني الأولى أنه لا يشترط. What's more correct is that it's not to be conditioned, meaning having the shakhs. لأن الواجب استقبال موضعها وهوائها دون حيطانها. Because what's wajib is to face the Kaaba, its place and its air, وهوائها دون حيطانها, not the walls of the Kaaba. So this is all about praying inside of the Kaaba. So which is the opinion of the madhab here, that it doesn't have to have a shakhs, doesn't have to have a shakhs or an object. ولهذا تصح على أبي قبيس. The salah is valid if you pray on the mountain of Abi Qubais, which is right in front of the Kaaba, وأعلى منها, and it's higher than the Kaaba. Because according to this, if you're praying in the hotel right in front of the Kaaba, you're facing the air, you're not facing the Kaaba. And of course, it's a valid salah, of course, because if you're in the mountain, you're facing the hawa of the Kaaba, you're not facing the Kaaba. So why then, if someone is inside the Kaaba, he has to face something? As the case where the door is open, he's facing the air, which is the same thing as if he's on top of the mountain. So this is the other, which is the correct opinion. Is it clear? ولذا تصح على أبي قبيس وهو أعلى منها, and it's higher than the Kaaba. وقدمه في التنقيح, this is what he put forward, وصححه في تصحيح الفروع, قال في الإنصاف وهو المذهب على ما اصطلحنا, this is the madhab according to what we agreed upon. So as if he mentioned first which is not, or the other narration which is not what the madhab is upon, but he mentioned the different rulings here, which shows that the madhab doesn't have to have a shakhs. If he prays inside of the Kaaba, doesn't have to have an object if it's open, like the door is opened. Now, ويستحب نفله في الكعبة بين الأسطوانتين. Since only the nafl is permissible according to the madhab, then it's recommended to pray the nafl between the two istuwana. Istuwanatain, al-istuwana is one, istuwanatain, this is the two, which is the pillar inside of the Kaaba. If you enter the Kaaba from the door, there's two pillars from both sides. So it's recommended to pray there, right in front of these two pillars, because this is what the Prophet ﷺ did. When he entered the Kaaba, he prayed between the two istuwanatain, this istuwana and istuwana. وجاهه إذا دخل. وجاهه, that means facing him. So when he entered from the gate, and facing, because and whatever wall of the Kaaba, you will see the two pillars. But it's when you enter from the place of entrance to the Kaaba, you're facing the two istuwana, and then you have them, you pray between them. This is what the Prophet ﷺ did. لفعله صلى الله عليه وسلم. And actually, they have a spot. They marked the place where the Prophet ﷺ prayed. So this is with the salah inside of the Kaaba. So whether it's only the nafl versus both the fard and the nafl are valid, and it doesn't matter what direction, because the issue where those who said it's not permissible for the fard because there's istidbar to some part of the Kaaba, giving the back to some of the Kaaba and facing some of the Kaaba. This is where the issue is all about, and some said it doesn't matter, which is because the Prophet ﷺ prayed inside. Now, if someone prays inside of the hijr with the back to the cube, which is a very, sometimes no one should ever do that, but the salah, he's inside the Kaaba. No. So it's the same ruling as inside of the Kaaba now. But the issue would, he would be given back his back to some of the Kaaba, which is, but the salah is valid. No. Oh, but no, but that should not be done. No, actually the same thing has been asked by the ulama. This is not something that a person should do. Do we have time to continue or no? So that's the end of this shart. Then after that is استقبال القبلة, to face the Qibla from the shurut of the salah. We wanted to finish inshallah till the end of till the beginning of Sifatul Salah. But is it clear? This, especially this dars with many differences of, if you understand the masail, and as far as the actions are concerned, most of it is permissible and things like this, but it's important to understand every word of it, inshallah. The attendance code is mufradat al-madhab. No, it's a shakhs as an object. Yeah, but refers to something that is from the ground up. So not something that is just any object in front of the person. And here shakhs muttasil bihi, something that is attached to the ground of the Kaaba, for example. What's the meaning of mazbala? Al-mazbala is the garbage place. Does the praying in baths also apply to locker rooms and gyms and public pools? It should not be, a person should not pray there. Yes. People should not pray in the locker rooms where there's attached to it showers. They should not pray there. But is it forbidden? What's forbidden is to pray in the hammam. But this is close. Because as said, the public hammam, the public places of showers, the ulama, they said the place of the shower and what's attached to it, where people would change their clothes in. So that should be avoided now. Is it okay that we take the more lenient opinions of the madhab when given two choices? As far as the actions are concerned now, the reason why I mentioned this, because this is where the opinions of what the mashayikh had mentioned. So this is, yes, in these cases, take these things now. And the more the person gain knowledge and he goes in to look into the evidences and things like this. And this is where the amal, the actions has been upon that what we mentioned, which is not necessarily the more lenient opinion. This is according to the evidences also, inshallah. Is using a hairbrush that is made with the hair of male pig impermissible? If it's, of course, anything from the pig is not permissible. So therefore, anything from it is makes it najis, even if it's tainted and everything like that. جزاكم الله خيرا. صلى الله وسلم على محمد وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك، اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.